What's up, everybody? Mark Drumheller here with Dave Gleckner for the Sharp app. USFL Best Bets Week 10. We're into the final week of the regular season. Sad to see it go. We found a lot of good edges over the past couple months here, but we're running through the home stretch, Dave.
We really are. And we got exactly, well, did we get it? I don't know. Maybe as fans we did, but the USFL got exactly what they wanted in a Week 10 of 4 games that all mean a little something. There's all a little something to play for, especially when you look at the North. It's going to be an exciting way to finish the season, even if you kind of, maybe not believe how it ended the way it should have. But, hey, in the end, we're going to have 4 good games this weekend.
Yeah, and I think what it really comes down to and what we've learned, with both of these spring leagues, is that, parity is real between these teams. Like, there aren't really front-running teams that can kind of pull away. Birmingham, obviously, the best team in the league, but by a slim margin, like any team that's going to make the playoffs is going to be live against them, which will create some, interesting scenarios from a futures perspective that we'll talk about next week, when we get into the playoffs. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. 4 meaningful games. The Birmingham-Memphis one, Birmingham's really the only team that I think might not have a ton of motivation here. They already clinched the playoffs. A win gets them, the South Division title, which gets them home field advantage. But I think New Orleans is in a pretty good spot to be the other playoff team, and they both play in the same hub. So even if Birmingham is the away team in the first round of the playoffs, if it's New Orleans, they're going to end up being the home team anyway. So, don't blame the messenger here. Like, I didn't choose the hub life. The hub life chose me. Like, that's how these leagues, run it, and there's nothing we can do. But it seems to me, so I'm really kind of like trying to stay away from that game just because I don't know if Skip Holtz is really going to, throw everything at, in that Stallions game. Really, he might be resting up starters and doing that kind of thing. I don't know how important, that South Division title is to them.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. That's the one game that I probably would say that, has the least motivation from, like you said, Birmingham side. But, New Orleans.
The other games are both the North games, Philadelphia and
it's winner take all.
Yeah, it's win, lose or go home. Win and in, lose or go home. So that's real exciting. And then, like I said, the New Orleans game, if they win, they're in. And I do think that they hold a lot of the tiebreakers anyway. I did like a rough glance over the tiebreakers. I did some, scratch arithmetic.
Yeah.
Like, didn't really go deep into the weeds, but it did look like that New Orleans had a lot of the advantages in the tiebreakers. So we very well could have the same 4 teams in the playoffs that we saw last year.
That'd be crazy. Jersey, Philly, New Orleans, and Birmingham.
We could, but let's talk about these games, right? So first, we'll start with the total. That's always the easy one, right? It's been easy all season.
Are we going back to it?
I'm going right back to it. I got if Pittsburgh is on the schedule and they're going to keep hanging these totals in the 40s, I'm going to keep hitting them with the under. So, I played the Pittsburgh under. I released it in the Sharp app at 41.5, down to 40.5. They're playing New Jersey here. I think it's a game. New Jersey's not this high-powered scoring offense. They look great against Philadelphia, but Philadelphia's defense makes a lot of offenses look great. So I think you have probably the 2 best defenses in the league playing against each other. We got a total in the 40s. Pittsburgh games this year have only averaged combined scores of 35.8 points through the first 9 weeks. And 7-1-1, we are betting these unders, and they're hanging this total. It's still, even at 40.5, it's still 5 points over the average, which is massive in this league. So I did hit the under. I'm going right back to it. There's a couple totals I like as well on the board. Anything that you're looking at from a total perspective?
Yeah, I can't argue with you where you're at, but I'm going to find better value for me and where I was handicapping in the Philly-Michigan game. I'm going to go under in the Philly-Michigan. Their first game of this season was 24-10, lots of turnovers. I feel like this one's going to be a tightly battled or contested game, and one where I think teams are going to play close to the vest. They're not going to be willing to try and open it up and let the other team go with margin. We know Michigan's offense is pathetic, right? I mean, what they scored 7 points last week against Pittsburgh and pretty much a win, and you're in game, and they weren't able to do anything against that defense. And while Philly's defense isn't very good, Michigan's offense is just not even. I don't
Oh,
think
they're
they can
awful.
even test
Worst
it.
offense in the
Yeah,
probably in the league. I
and
mean,
what
they
we
looked a
saw,
little better of late, but still pretty
yeah,
big.
but what we saw with
Yeah.
Jersey, how did they expose Philly? They ran right up the middle, and DeAndre Johnson was great too at quarterback, but they were able to give that kind of flex type of offense where they're able to be multi-dimensional. That ain't happening with Michigan. So for me, I think that game is it's such a closely contested game and one that was played low to the total earlier this season. I think it's going to go back there. 42.5 is a nice spot for me. I'm going under in that game.
I like it. I like it. Another total I like. I haven't decided whether I'm going to play it yet, but I'm looking at the New Orleans Houston over. So it's a 44.5,
Yeah.
relatively high for this league, right? But the Houston, number one, both these teams top 3 offenses, right? So them Birmingham are the top 3 offenses. So we're getting 2 good offenses. Houston has Mark Thompson, probably the best running back in the USFL. When they have to rely on the passing game, they get in a little bit of trouble. But again, these teams score points, and then you look at the other side of the ball, and Houston's defense has just been bad down the stretch. They allow, I believe, the 7th most points per game. So they let up a ton of points when these two teams played earlier in the week, earlier in the season. It was 38-31, so 69 points. Nice. But, you kind of get the picture here, right? Like, this is not, these aren't, there's a lot of opportunity here for New Orleans probably going to score a lot coming off that game last week. And I think that's just going to kind of set the tempo for the game. I think, getting it at 44.5, I think this is a nice play to the over. But that was the other total I was looking at. So, it's good. We hit 3 of the 4 games from a total perspective.
I love it. Yeah, I can see that one going up with a lot of points too. And while you're talking about that game, I'll go to my best bet. And it is the Houston Gamblers plus the 4 points. Listen, New Orleans, I can't get I don't know where I'm at with them. Win their first 4, lose 3 in a row. We now win 2 in a row. And last week, let me just go. I missed, right? I liked Memphis last week, but the fact of the matter, how does New Orleans win a game 31-3 when they had 64 yards passing, 170 total yards?
Yep.
And they win the game 31-3. I'm still trying to crunch the numbers here. And it's not even like the turnovers were that terrible. I mean, there was a handful of them, but in the end, I mean, in 5, I guess the difference was 5. They did have those 2 fumbles lost, but I think that just takes some sloppy play from Memphis. And I'm going to go with the Houston Gamblers in this one. They were sloppy last week too, right? They couldn't convert in the red zone.
Oh, brutal. Yeah, I was on Houston in that game and I was killing myself.
And I think that just was, they were a little tight.
They
but
were.
I'm okay.
Bahar was terrible.
And they lost this game earlier this season, I think, by 7 points to the Breakers. But Thompson didn't play in that game. So I think they got everything to play for in this game. I think they have the motivation. I think people are going to look at 31-3 and think how good they did play last week, New Orleans. And I think that's not the story. Houston's going to come in and win this one outright, but I'll take the 4. 3.5.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. 3.5 in some spots, but you can get some 4s out there. I think I saw a 4 on DraftKings a little earlier, but yeah, definitely. I think I like it. I think they're the side. Anything over 3, like I think you're fine with Houston. Like if it gets under 3, probably let it go. I don't know if they win the game outright. They could, but I really think these teams are coin flip teams. Like once you kind of it's good to depend on who turns the ball over, who makes the mistakes. So, but I do expect a lot of points. I like that you're on the dog. I think that's the right side as well. So absolutely love that play. I'm going to give you my best bet from the side, Dave. I'm going with Philadelphia here against Michigan. I mean, I think Michigan's the worst team in this whole entire league. And Philadelphia did not look great last week. Case Cookis was banged up, limping down the stretch, got beat up. The defense got smoked. But they're playing a Michigan team that I'm not sure can take advantage of it. They only average 16 points per game this year. Love throws a ton of interceptions. They can't get out of their way. I don't feel like so. The interesting dynamic in this is that it's lose or go home, right? So there's pressure on teams, and we know from betting football, it can be the USFL, the XFL, the NFL. When it's like win or go home, must win games, right? Teams usually don't play well. It's very like the narrative that, hey, you know what, they're going to come out and give their best effort because they have to. It usually doesn't work. The pressure usually has an adverse impact on that team. And when a team is a bad team in that situation, it gets exasperated, right? It's, they make more mistakes. They push more because they don't have confidence in themselves because they haven't been a good team all season. And I think that's what you're going to see at Michigan. Like, there's a chance that they come out super loose here and do all these crazy trick plays, but that doesn't seem like that's their MO. You know what I mean? So I like Philadelphia here. You get it at a pick 'em. You just play them on the money line, minus 110. It's 110 on each side. I think they're the better team here. I don't think Philly is, I believe it's 5-1 in the futures market on Philly that, I'm not thinking it has much value when we get into these playoffs. I think they could be in a lot of trouble, but I think they're better than Michigan, and I think it shows on the field.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I love the pick, and there's a big reason why for me. It all shows about momentum might not be the right word, but it all shows about heart. Last week, Philly was down 37-16 and scored the last 17 points in that game, got an onside kick, and almost pulled off this
I
miraculous
know, dude.
victory.
You don't tell me. I was on Jersey, so I'm over there sweating bullets, dude.
But it showed a lot of, heart, right? A lot of fight left in the dog. Michigan, what was the score last week against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, they just lay down. Yeah.
Lay down.
Yep.
And I like that they're going in two different directions and we're getting to pick them. So, Philly's the better team overall, in my opinion, anyway. Like we said earlier, the pressure was the key point because I think that does lead towards that lower scoring game that I like as well.
Yeah. Who do you like in the Pitt jersey?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I like Pitt.
I mean, not from a betting perspective.
Yeah, I like Pitt with the points. I don't think Jersey – I get – they ran the ball all over Philly last week. That's not going to happen against Pittsburgh, one of the best defensive lines in the league. And I think they're going to have to try and waze through the air. And I think it's going to be a fight. I think Jersey ends up winning eventually, but I would take the points.
The 3.5 is a lot, especially with that Pitt defense.
What about you?
But I think Jersey wins. I'm not going to bet it. Like I don't like the game from that perspective, but because I think it could be a coin flip. But I do think Jersey wins, and I think we're going to end up with the same 4 teams. It's going to be playoffs are going to be the same. It's going to be New Orleans and Birmingham, and it's going to be Philly and Jersey in the North, which is kind of funny in a way.
It is. It is.
Now, what I'll have to see what these teams look like this week, before I kind of make a decision on, how I think these playoffs are going to unfold. But I was taking little shots, like it took Philly in the beginning of the year. I got a little invested in Houston, almost got invested in Memphis. But I don't know, man. It's really hard to see like a team knocking off Birmingham because they have the quarterback. They had the best quarterback, and not only that, they have like just the experience of being through it and winning. And you can kind of see that with the team at the end. Like they win a lot of close games, and the games that they're down and they come back from and they come. So I think it's almost like you're seeing the seeds of like the Birmingham building a culture there and a culture of kind of winning. And I think that's the difference between, you look at New Orleans and you got a, new quarterback, you got a new coach, you got all new people in there, right? And a lot of skill position players are the same, but you get the picture, and then you get on the other side and
win a game. They can't win any close games.
Right. Yeah. That's Houston can't win them because they get, they get down in the game. They got a new coach. They get tight. They either, start running the ball too much at Mark Thompson or Bahar just hands it off to the other team. Like that stuff drove me nuts, man. I wanted to die. I had Houston in the points. I think I had 4.5 or something. And it should have cashed. But he was literally just giving the ball away constantly. And I'm like, this is awful. But so I don't know. So I mean that the Houston ticket's not going to get there because I think New Orleans, even if they lose, has the tiebreakers to get in. They won't be the division winner, but they'll get in as that second seed because I think it's like it comes down to like who the team's lost to, and I forget what it is. Like I think Houston has like a loss to Pitt or Michigan or something. They're like a team that's like really bad, and like that kind of like kills them in the tiebreakers. So, and same thing with Memphis. Memphis lost to like Michigan or like bad teams earlier in the year. So I think New Orleans is going to be okay. But we're probably going to get 4 teams.
Which I like what you're saying because at the end of the game, if they don't really care, give me those points.
Yep, I know. It makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah. So I think that's a good one there. But right, so they might. I don't know if they'll. I don't even think the league knows the tiebreakers. They were tweeting stuff out today, and it was just kind of like, oh, if this happens, then we're good, and then or it's going to come down to the tiebreakers, and it's like I don't even think they worked out the math yet. I don't even think they bother with it. But I did a glance over, and I think it's going to be New Orleans, even if they win or lose. But should be fun. But listen,
It will be.
guys, we'll be back next week. We'll talk about the playoff matchups, futures. One last stab at the futures to see who we think is going to win out of the final 4 teams that qualify for the playoffs. But we appreciate you hanging with us. Download the Sharp app if you haven't. The link for the Discord is in the description. Hop in there. Ask about the special they have running right now, 75% off to be a Sharp Pro subscriber. So get in there. Ask all about it, get all the information, get all the tools so you can win some cash this summer and get ready for football season. But we appreciate you guys hanging in, and we'll see you next week. Good luck on all your bets.